Today, we are going to be filling out the Group 1 application packet, which can be found online. So if you'd like to follow along, I will tell you which forms you have to wait to sign, but you're certainly welcome to follow along and get the bulk of it done. And just a couple things to keep in mind here. The application packet cannot have any crossouts or corrections on it, and it must be submitted in ink if you're going to submit a hard copy. Now, if you're like me and you immediately panicked, don't worry. You can always do it electronically and then print it out for the signature piece of it, or you can do it in pencil and then just go over it again in ink. So don't panic over that. We're going to get through all of this, and I promise if you know your personal information, that's about 85% of these forms, so it won't be too bad. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first form that we're going to complete today is the most important form in the packet, and that is your application. This is what is going to lock in your retirement date. It's typically 2 pages long. We're going to go through each section individually. At the very top, you're going to see 2 check boxes. There's service retirement or vested deferred retirement. Now, a service retirement is somebody who is filling out the application packet and filing while they are still working for a participating employer. A vested deferred retirement is somebody who has left a participating employer and is filing at a later date. Now, in section 1, a lot of this is general information, so we're not going to cover that. However, I do want to point out a couple of things. The first is that you see last NHRS covered employer. So if you are a service retirement, this is who you work for currently. If you are a vested deferred retirement, this is the last employer you worked for while you contributed to the retirement system. Your title of position held is your job title, and your date of termination is the last day that you will work or have worked for a participating employer. Now, very important about date of termination. There's no real limitation on when you're going to stop as long as you stop prior to your date of retirement. So you can work up until the last day of the month prior. If you want to get service credit for the month, you do need to work through at least half of the month, which means you have to work through the 15th. If the 15th falls on a weekend day, then you want to work through the following Monday in order to get the credit for the month. However, you can leave whenever you'd like. Typically, NHRS will not reach out to your employer until after you have already retired. For state employees, we do reach out to risk management a little bit ahead of time for the health insurance bit of it, and I will explain that a little bit later on. So just make sure that you put your date of termination. If you're not 100% sure what that date is going to be, you can always put the last business day of the month or the last working day of the month. That's absolutely fine. Your employer will certify the actual last day. And finally, we're going to put in the date of retirement. Now, retirement does always start on the 1st of the month, so we've already pre-filled that for you. You just need to indicate the month and year you are planning to retire. Now, the next section is where it gets a little bit tricky. This is where you're going to sign for the payment option that you'd like. There are 6 options to choose from, technically 7, but I will explain why we're not going over the last one. And we're going to go ahead and cover each and every one of these so that you have a basic understanding of what they mean. Now, keep in mind for these particular items that as you go through, we only want one signature, so you can only sign once. However, you're not immediately locked into the option that you have selected. You have 120 days from the date of your final notice of retirement before you are locked into the option you've selected. It does take about 4 to 6 months to finalize a benefit. So what happens is when you file, we don't want to anticipate your final wages and risk overpaying you. So we are going to put you on the books with what we have at the time of retirement, and this becomes your preliminary pension. Once your employer has reported all final wages, including any leave time if applicable, that's when we're going to recalculate the benefit. If we were underpaying you, which most likely we were, we're going to send you a letter letting you know what we are owed to you for retroactive pay, and you will have one balloon payment with that retro pay in it. And from there, it'll level out at the correct amount. The reason I bring this up is if you've looked at an estimate, keep in mind that the preliminary pension will most likely be a little bit less than the estimate, and your service credit will be off by a month or 2. We will get there eventually, though, I promise. So going through these options, the first of which is the maximum retirement allowance. This means that you're going to take a maximum monthly pension for your lifetime. Upon your passing, the monthly benefit will stop. What we would pay out to your beneficiary is any of what we call undistributed contributions. So this is your money and interest that you have put into the system throughout your career. Now, each month that you collect your pension, it will be a dollar for dollar reduction from that bucket of funds, which means that in approximately 5 to 6 years, you will have exhausted everything you've put into the retirement system. You still have a lifetime benefit. However, at that time, upon your passing, nothing would be paid to your beneficiaries. Now, option one is the refund without survivorship. This runs very similar to the maximum retirement option in that it is a monthly lifetime pension that will cease upon your passing, and we would still pay out a one-time lump sum to your beneficiaries. The only difference between this option and the maximum is that by taking a slightly reduced benefit each month, you're stretching out how long it takes to run through your contributions. So if it takes about 5 to 6 years with a maximum, you're looking at about 6 to 7 roughly with an option one retirement. The next option is option two. This is the first of our survivorship options, and this is a 100% continuance. So this means that you will take a pension for your lifetime, and upon your passing, your beneficiary will continue that benefit at 100%. Now, each of these options from two down do have a cost associated with them, and we'll talk a little bit later about how to obtain an estimate if you have not done so, but just keep that in mind that there will be a slightly reduced benefit to cover this option. Option three is a 50%. So you will take a slightly reduced benefit for your lifetime. Upon your passing, your beneficiary would continue that benefit at 50%. Option 4A is also a 100% option. This means that you will continue to receive a lifetime pension, and upon your passing, your beneficiary would continue it at 100%. However, in this situation, if your beneficiary were to predecease you, you would actually pop back up to the maximum retirement allowance and no longer take that reduction since the option would no longer be able to be paid out to the beneficiary. And option 4B is the 50% pop up. So again, you're going to take a reduced pension for your lifetime. Upon your passing, the beneficiary will continue the benefit at 50%. However, if the beneficiary passes away before you, you revert back to the maximum retirement allowance and no longer take a reduced benefit. So really, 4A and 4B are very similar to 2 and 3, with just the caveat of the benefit will change if your beneficiary passes, whereas with 2 and 3, it will not. Option 4C is for special circumstances only. This is for a specified dollar amount or percentage. That does require board approval, so we're not going to cover the specifics on that. However, if you do have any questions, you can always go to our website or give us a call, and we're happy to answer those. So once you have signed for your option, the next piece of this is determining who will be your beneficiary. Now, this section is comprised of two parts, Part A and Part B, that typically span 2 pages. You are only going to be completing one of these sections. If you have a single primary beneficiary, you're going to be filling out Part A. You'll indicate their name, mailing address, last 4 digits of their social security number, date of birth, and relationship to you. If you are going to have multiple primary beneficiaries, you're going to skip Part A and go to Part B. Here you will list the same information. However, if you have more than the 3 spaces allotted, you can certainly initial above and attach a signed and acknowledged addendum. The only difference between B and A is that there is an added column that is distribution percentage. That total must be 100%. So if you had, for example, 3 beneficiaries, you would need to pick the favorite to give them the extra percent and have them at 33, 33, 34. Now, when it comes to changing beneficiaries, with a maximum or option 1 retirement, you can change your beneficiaries at any time. However, if you select a survivorship option, once you have hit that 120-day mark from the date of your final notice of retirement, you are locked into that beneficiary, barring special circumstances only. Typically, those are death or divorce. If you do decide that you want to have multiple primary beneficiaries, you are also limited to spouse and or children only. So you can't have multiple primary beneficiaries that don't fall into those categories, spouse and children only. The next section is your designation of contingent beneficiary. Now, a contingent beneficiary is not required. They do not receive a monthly pension. However, in the event that your primary beneficiary were to pass away before you, and upon your passing there was any of your money left in the system, we do have to pay that out. You can list a contingent beneficiary to receive that in a one-time lump sum. You can change your contingent beneficiaries at any point, and you'll notice this looks very similar to the Part B. You can also initial and include attached and signed acknowledged addendum if you'd like to have more than the 3 allowed. Now, for a contingent beneficiary, again, you can change this at any time, and there are no limitations on who you list here. Just keep in mind, once you have exhausted all of your contributions in the system, there would not be anything payable to a contingent beneficiary. If you do not list a beneficiary for a contingent and something were to happen, we would pay it out to the estate. And one thing I did forget to mention on primary beneficiaries is we do have to have a primary beneficiary listed. If you prefer, you can list estate if you don't have an individual that you'd like to leave it to, but we do need to have something written in that section. Finally, it's the signature section where you're going to just be filling out printing your name, signing, and dating. Now, this form does need to be notarized, and they will handle from the state of county of down to the bottom. You can have a notary or a justice of peace sign this. We do ask that you make sure that that seal down in the bottom right-hand corner is visible when you send it. So just make sure that if you're going to send it electronically and it's a raised seal, you may want to include a copy in the mail so that we have the original to confirm the seal. This is not an attestation form. And what that means is that it does not have to be signed in the presence of a notary. The notary must sign it the same day or after. So if you're following along, you are actually welcome to sign that today. The next form in our section is the mandatory acknowledgement certification form. Now, this is the easiest form that you're going to complete. However, it is one of the first forms that gets sent back, and I will explain why. So if you're filling this out along with us today, you're going to fill out section 1, and that's where you're just going to print and sign your name. Now in section 2, we only need one signature, and this must be signed in the presence of a notary public or justice of the peace. So this is an attestation form. This is actually a form that if you're legally married at the time of retirement, your spouse has to sign. So they will be signing in part A and dating in front of a notary. If you are not legally married, then you're just going to sign in part B. However, it does need to be in the presence of a notary. This particular form is certifying that the person signing it is legally married to you and aware of the option that you've selected on the application. Now, because they are certifying that, we need to make sure that this particular form is signed and dated either the same day that you notarize your application or after. So it cannot be done before your application is fully notarized. We just need proof that they were aware of the option. Not that they agreed, but that they're aware. And even if you are not legally married and signing yourself, it still needs to be done the same day or after the application is notarized to confirm that no changes took place. Once we have our single signature, the notary is going to fill out section 3. One thing I do like to point out is you'll see a line here that says name of person making statement, or some forms say signing in section 2 above. So if your spouse is the one signing the form, it's actually their name that's going to go there. Also, just make sure that that seal is visible when you send this in. The next form in our packet is the electronic direct deposit form. Now, NHRS does not require electronic direct deposit. However, we do highly encourage it. And I will tell you from experience just this past month, the Postal Service can be delayed during the holidays. And if you're looking for that paycheck, you really don't want to push it because we were averaging 14 days before people were getting checks this month. So certainly if you can set up direct deposit, I highly encourage it. Now, section 1, you're just going to check off new retiree and indicate your date of retirement. Section 2 is just some general information about you. I do want to call your attention to that bottom line there. That is your complete mailing address. That does tend to get missed, so just make sure that you fill that out. If you do not have two telephone numbers, just a home or cell, we only need to have one. Section 3 for your benefit type, you're going to check off pension benefit. If you have additional contributions, you're going to check this box as well, and we'll discuss a little bit later what those are. Now, NHRS does allow you to split your deposit in up to 3 separate accounts. However, we do have to have a primary account. You're just going to indicate checking or savings, bank name, routing number, and account number. If you do want to split the deposit into multiple accounts, you can do so by using additional accounts 1 and 2. Same information, however, you do need to specify either a specific dollar amount or percentage that's going to be diverted to those accounts. Keep in mind, you can update your banking information at any time. However, there is a deadline by the 12th of every month to ensure that it gets done for the current month. Otherwise, it won't take place until the following. Finally, you're going to sign and date, and if you're following along, you can do that right now. The next form in our packet is one that you may not have to complete. Now, when you fill out a retirement application, there is some legal documents that we ask for. We are going to ask for a copy of your birth certificate. We will ask for a copy of your beneficiary's birth certificate only if you've selected a survivorship option, so 2, 3, 4A, or 4B. And finally, we will ask for a copy of your Social Security card. If you have the Social Security card handy and submit a copy, you do not need to fill out the Form W-9. However, if you're like me and you might have misplaced it and can't remember where you put it, you can fill out the Social Security card. It's a very simple form. You're just going to put your name in line 1. On line 3, you're going to check off individual/sole proprietor or single member LLC. And lines 5 and 6 is your complete mailing address. Part 1, you're going to put in your full Social Security number. And in Part 2, you're going to sign and date. The next form in our packet is only for state of New Hampshire retirees. So if you're not retiring from a state of New Hampshire agency, you do not need to complete this. However, if you are filing on behalf of a state of New Hampshire agency, you definitely want to do this because this is what's going to get sent over to risk management to confirm your eligibility for the health benefits. Typically, we send these over on the 20th of every month. So remember in the beginning, I said we don't reach out to employers, but we do send this. This will go out typically a week or 2 before your official retirement date. Now, you're just going to fill out Part 1, which is comprised of some basic information about you, as well as your dates and places of state employment only. If you have any of the applicable service credit types, you can check those boxes. However, if you're not sure, you do not need to check those. NHRS will certify your total time in Section 2. Finally, you're just going to sign and date. And again, that will be sent over to risk management, who will then reach out to you with eligibility information. And finally, the form in the packet that you need to complete is the Form W-4P. Now, unfortunately, pensions are taxable federally. You are not required to have taxes withheld. However, you are required to fill out a W-4P even if you don't want federal taxes to be withheld. It's a very simple form. However, I will tell you that the tax tables can change annually. And your preliminary benefit tax will be different than the final benefit just because the gross amounts will be different. The reason I bring this up is because it's kind of a hit or miss in the beginning how much to have withheld. And unfortunately, we at NHRS are not certified licensed tax professionals, so we're really limited to what we can do with these forms. I can tell you how to fill it out, but I can't tell you how to fill it out, if that makes sense. So I do recommend that you speak with a tax advisor if you can. It's a great time of year if you are planning to file to just talk to them, make sure that you're filling it out correctly. But don't worry, if you need to adjust it, you can do so at any time. So you just fill out a new W-4P and it'll override what we had. You're only going to be completing, or you only have to complete, I should say, step 1, which is just your first name, middle initial, last name, full social security number, and mailing address. And then you do need to indicate your marital status as single, married, filing jointly, head of household. Steps 2 through 4 are not required. You can certainly fill them out, but they are not required. However, I do want to call your attention to line 4C. This is where you can indicate a flat extra amount if you'd like. So if after the first paycheck you realize that we're only taking out $50 and you wanted $100, for example, you could fill out a new W-4P looking identical to the one you submitted, but adding the extra $50 on line 4C to net out at the total. Again, keep in mind that those tax tables can change every year in January. So when you get the end of January pension check, that may be different than what you had in December. You can always update this. If you do not want federal taxes withheld, you're just going to fill out the step 1. And then on that long line above step 5, you're just going to write no withholding because there's not a place for it on here. So that's where you're going to indicate that. And finally, in step 5, you're just going to sign and date. Now, I did mention the additional contributions. This is actually a closed program, closed effective 12/31/2004. So if you are contributing to this program, you do need to fill out this form, the payment options for additional contributions, to determine whether or not you want a monthly benefit or if you want to have a lump sum paid to you via lump sum or rollover. If you have never contributed to this or are not approved for this, you do not need to complete this form. It is not applicable. If you do have to complete the form, I do encourage you to give us a call and we can certainly walk you through that. So now that we've completed the application packet, the next question is, when can I submit it? We are officially in the filing deadline for 2024. So I do have the information here. If you are filing as a service retirement, you do have to file within 30 to 90 days prior to the effective date of retirement. And again, that's always on the first of the month. If you are filing as a vested deferred, You actually just need to file up until the day before your retirement. So technically you could file for a December 1st as long as you get us the application by November 30th. But if you're still working, the earliest we can put you on payroll would be for a January 1st retirement. Keep in mind that getting the application to us is what's going to lock in this date. So if you get us the application and are missing a document or something is incorrect, it does not change your date of retirement. As long as the application is here, the date is locked in. We'll just write out to you to let you know that we do need to have some corrections or a form given back to us, but it will not change that date of retirement. So hopefully that gives you a little peace of mind. You can submit your application a few different ways. If you have an active My account, you can absolutely fill out the packet electronically. However, keep in mind that all the forms that are not the application will still have to be uploaded. The only one that's available in your My account is the application itself. The benefit of doing it that way is you do not have to have it notarized if it's submitted electronically. If you do that, though, keep in mind that the mandatory acknowledgement still needs to be signed the same day you submit it or after because of those requirements. But it's a nice ability to get that application over to us, lock in that date. We do have the forms available on our website, or we are certainly happy to send them to you. If you want to give us a call, we can mail, fax, or email them. We do offer appointments with member benefit specialists. They're typically 1 hour, and what they do is go through the application with you piece by piece. Now, I will tell you, we have to have a minimum of 3 weeks out to book a benefit specialist appointment. So if you're looking for within the next month, it's probably going to be pretty hard to get you guys in. But keep in mind that we do offer walk-ins as well. Our walk-in hours are from 8 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. We cannot sit with you and go through the application, but what we can do is give it a once over and let you know if there's anything that we see that might be missing or incorrect. We can also notarize documents. So it's a nice option that's available to you if you want to come in and have somebody just glance over it. If you have not completed an estimate card, you can certainly do that. I will tell you again, we are ranging right now about 3 to 4 weeks out for estimates. I don't know if you guys know this, but we just went through a pretty heavy software upgrade to a new system. So things are a little delayed on our end. Keep in mind, you can withdraw your application up until the day before retirement. So even if you were to file and decide once you looked at numbers that you don't want to, you just email us and let us know. And again, you have that 120-day window to change your mind on your option. So if you've selected something, get the numbers and realize you want something else, we just need something in writing or email to us asking us to change it. So my point here is don't hold off on applying just because you don't have the numbers. If you're sure you want to go, you can always retract it as needed. If you need to complete the application, the estimate card, you're just going to check off your type of retirement as either service or vested deferred and indicate some basic information about you. If you are a member who was vested prior to January 1st, 2012, we do want you to include your severance pay if you know it. What that is unused leave time or any longevity paid out to you. If you're not sure, you do not have to put that there, as just know that the estimate will be conservative. If you want to see the options, you can certainly do so by listing your beneficiary information, either for a single primary beneficiary or multiples. Just fill out the information and make sure that distribution percentage equals 100 if you are looking at multiple primary beneficiaries. This doesn't lock you into an option, but it does show you the cost for all of the options. So if you're considering putting a beneficiary on there, you're always going to see the maximum for an estimate, but if you want to see the other ones, indicate your beneficiary information. Finally, you're just going to check a box certifying that you have read and agreed to the above statement, basically just saying you've provided as accurate information as possible and you're aware this is just an estimate. For those of you who do want to work after retirement, there are a few things that you should know. If you want to work for a participating employer, there are some restrictions. If you decide that you want to work for someone who does not contribute to the retirement system, there is no restrictions. You can work as much as you want, make as much as you want. It will not affect the pension. If you do decide you want to go back to a participating employer, you must be part-time. So you cannot work full-time and you cannot contribute full-time and receive a pension. You do have to have a 28-day break in service from your date of retirement, and there are no exceptions to that, unfortunately. So even if you had a part-time job already, once you're officially retired, you fall under the HB2 guidelines, which means you do have to have that 28-day break. However, after that, you may absolutely go back in a part-time capacity. You do also have an annual limit of 1,352 hours in a calendar year. And I cannot stress enough how important it is that it must be part-time, because if you're working for a school district, we know that it's a 180-day school year. So technically it's under the 1,352 hours. You still have to maintain part-time status to collect your pension. If you do decide that you want to go back to work full-time for a participating employer, basically all that you do is let us know. We will stop the pension. You will keep your vesting status and just retire at a later date. So don't think this is an end all be all if you get offered that dream job for someone who contributes to the retirement system. We do have quite a few resources that are available to you. We have the filing deadlines and the forms that you would need to file. We have FAQs concerning common interactions with NHRS, as well as the Working After Retirement FAQ. We also have a YouTube video to assist with the application packet, very much like what you went through today. There's also a video on there that discusses the benefit payment types. So if you need another refresher on that, you can see that as well. And finally, we have the estimate card available. Questions regarding health insurance and leave time payouts should be addressed by your employer, as NHRS does not administer any health insurance or make any payments for unused leave time. So this concludes our presentation.